This is the Barbados Today evening news for Wednesday, October 16. Thank you for joining us. I am Mary-Claire Williams. Policymakers are being urged to speed up the implementation of anti-corruption legislation and supporting framework. At the same time, the local accounting fraternity says it is ready to assist the Mia Mottley administration as it continues to restructure the economy under the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Program. Addressing the launch of Accountants Week 2019, President of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Barbados, Lydia McCollin, says it is important for officials to operate with a great level of integrity as they continue to rebuild the economy.
We acknowledge government's focus and commitment in this area by first the announcement of plans to establish a major organized crime and anti-corruption agency, and second by the new Integrity in Public Life Bill, which, when passed into law, will establish an integrity commission and strengthen measures to prevent, detect, investigate, and prosecute acts of corruption by persons in public life. ICAB looks forward to a full and speedy implementation of all legislation and establishment of announced institutions. Recognizing that all citizens are building blocks in the transformation of our Barbados, the government cannot stand alone in this fight against crime and corruption. Organizations in the private sector must also ensure that their own company policies address these issues and that ethics is the bedrock for conducting business.
Accountants Week is scheduled for November 3rd to 9 under the theme Under Construction, Building Blocks to Recovery. The separation of Barbados's cruise and cargo facilities has been approved. Word of this from Government Senator Lisa Cummins, who is also the chairman of the Barbados Port Inc. Speaking during debate on the Upper House this morning on the Shipping Incentives Amendment Bill 2019, Senator Cummins revealed that officials are in the process of talks on the development of a dedicated new cargo facility.
You are aware, Mr. President, and it has been spoken of by Prime Minister Mottley, it has been spoken of by the Minister responsible for Maritime Affairs and the Blue Economy, and it has also been spoken of by the Minister responsible for Tourism. There has been a policy decision that cruise and cargo should be separated. And the Prime Minister has said on many occasions that the idea of a cruise vessel, billions of dollars cruising into the Barbados port and overlooking stacks of containers 3 high, really is not the aesthetic that we want to have projected about our tourism industry. And so therefore the decision has been made by this administration that cruise and cargo must be separated. And as we speak, Mr. President, we are engaged in active negotiations for that policy decision to be given effect.
She also revealed that government and port officials have an ambition set by policy decision to evolve into a full logistics hub that is in a position to attract more ships to Barbados and create new shipping lanes.
We have set a trajectory for ourselves where we accept that the Northern Caribbean has its role to play, certainly as it relates to the North American market. But we have set a trajectory for ourselves where we wish to prioritize South-South cooperation. How many years, Mr. President, have we as a people and as a region been talking about greater collaboration between the African region and the Caribbean region and the Caribbean region and the South American region? We've been talking about it for a long time, Mr. President, and so the opportunity here is for us not to look at what's happening in the north alone, and we accept that they're going to be fine in the north, but to create new shipping lanes that go from the African continent, Mr. President, Port Tima, out of Ghana, for example, down into the most southerly country in the Caribbean, which is none other than Barbados, Mr. President, and then further south down into the southern tip of the southern continent, Suriname and Guyana, and then even further, Mr. President, into South America. That is the new trajectory that we are setting for ourselves in this maritime industry, so we are able to create those directions.
Agriculture Minister Inda Ware says his ministry is pressing ahead with plans to make agriculture a greater contributor to the economy. And he says one of the first steps will be to reduce the food import bill. Ware was addressing the presentation of starter kits and allocation of land to the first cohort of the feed program as part of the observance of World Food Day today.
I love having this conversation about the food import bill, because the conversation that I hear about the food import bill is not the one that I want to have. The conversation I hear about the food import bill is actually the wrong one. We have primary agriculture imports. That is what we can control at this juncture. And primary agriculture imports speak to the things that we import that we can produce here. So if we are importing potatoes, we want to produce them here. If we are importing soursop, we want to produce them here. If we are importing pumpkins, we know we can produce them here. And that is where my target is at.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
It's Festive Friday at the Bridgetown Night Market at Pelican Craft Center. Kick off the weekend this Friday from 4 p.m. to midnight with loads of food, drinks, and entertainment. Get ready for Crop Over with the Rhythm Roots Street Parade. Party like it's Kadooman Day on the street around Pelican Village with costume reveler, music, and more. It's Festive Friday. It's Festive Friday at the Bridgetown Night Market at Pelican Village Center from 4 p.m. to midnight. Admission free.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
Thank you for staying with us. We're back with news from the region. Guyana's Chief Justice Roxanne George Wiltshire has dismissed an application by the opposition People's Progressive Party that sought to get the court to force the cabinet's resignation after it lost the motion of no confidence last December. In her ruling on Wednesday, Justice George Wiltshire described the PPP's application as vexatious and an absolute abuse of the court process. She noted that the matter had already been rejected by the country's final court of appeal, the Caribbean Court of Justice. Under the Guyana Constitution, elections should be held 90 days after a vote of no confidence is passed. The Constitution also provides for an extension of the period based only on a two-thirds majority vote in Parliament. The CCJ did not rule on when the election should be held, but President David Granger has since announced that March 2nd will be polling day. On the international scene, Britain and the EU were said to be on the verge of a last-minute Brexit deal on Wednesday, but Prime Minister Boris Johnson still has work to do at home to persuade his own government to approve the plan. We get more in this Reuters report.
Prime Minister Leo Varadkar said on Wednesday that talks so far have failed to resolve the issues standing in the way of a civilised divorce. The sticking point for both sides, trade and the status of the Irish border. Talks have dragged on, and any hope of a deal could be shattered if the British House of Commons fail to approve it later down the line. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has repeatedly vowed to take Britain out of the EU on October 31st, with or without a deal. A message reiterated by Brexit Minister Stephen Barclay, who said earlier on Wednesday that he would not accept a Brexit delay, even if it was only used to tie up the necessary legal requirements of an agreement. If no compromise can be met, the EU believes the UK will be forced to delay its departure for a third time. They may hold an emergency summit later in October to either approve a deal, grant an extension, or make preparations for a chaotic departure.
That's the news, but for the very latest, visit our website www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals and Screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM. I am Marie Claire Williams. Good evening.